Okay, hello everybody. Hey, I just wanted to go through some of the homework from section 2.4. Some of these data sets are rather large, and it's much easier if you work through these using Excel. Also, some of the things that I'm going to show you today in Excel are things that you're going to be doing in your first Excel project, which we're going to do on Friday. Um, so let's take a look at this first question. I think that some of you probably were able to take this data set. It's relatively small and put the numbers into your calculator. So they give you a link here to get to the data. And I know that the data is a little bit wonky because of the tabs and so forth. But it's only like 30 values that you need to put in the calculator, 30 ordered pairs, so 60 numbers. That's manageable, but I want to show you using this data set how to come up with some of the answers using Excel. So here's the first thing. This data is just a text file, and so what I want to do first is select all of it. And I'm just going to I can just hit Command C, or I can go here and say copy. Right, and then I'm going to open up an Excel spreadsheet, and let me just open up a new one. All right, and then you might think, well, if I just paste this, I should be able to get those in the cells. But here's what happens if you paste it. You're going to get the same problem with the tabs being a problem. So don't do it that way. I'm going to hit Command Z and back that up. You need to go up to Edit, and then it's a Paste Special. And if you pick either the Unicode text or just text, then it will clean it up for you. Right? And then you've got everything in these columns. All right, so now once we get everything set up like this, the question said to, let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller so we can see the question as well. And I don't really need this one right now. So the question was, where is it? Oh, I'm still in Excel. Well, that's a problem. Okay, so go back here to the previewer, and then let me bring up Excel again. So they give you the least squares regression line here. But suppose that they just gave you this data and they asked you to find the equation, the least squares regression line. All right, I want to take you through the steps of doing this on Excel because you're going to need to do that on question number 2. All right, and then also there is a longer data set that is in question number 4, the tutorial one. All right, and you definitely don't want to do that on your calculator. There's like 500 entries there. Okay, so let me show you what we're expected to do here. So first thing I'm going to notice is that revenue is the explanatory variable and value is the response variable. So revenue is X, value is Y. And if you notice, they're switched around here. All right, so first thing is I have to tell it that I'd like to make a scatter plot of this first. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is highlight the values that I want to make a scatter plot of. Right, and then there's 2 ways that you can create the scatter plot. I found that if you go up here to Insert and then Chart, you can go to an XY scatter here. But it's actually better if you select this insert. Okay, it's actually just on this file and not in the actual Excel. And then Insert, and then if you go over to about the middle, there's an option here to make an XY scatter plot. Okay, and the one that we want is the first one. Okay, so there is a scatter plot of this data. Right now, the problem is, if you notice that it put this is the X value. Okay, so it put value as X and it put revenue as Y. That's not what we want. We want it the other way around. Okay, and when I was messing around with this, I thought that switch row and column would do what I wanted to do, but it really doesn't. I need to go up to the one that says select data. Okay, and this is where I can change the input. So I want the X values. Okay, it says sheet 1, and if you look down here at the bottom, we're on sheet 1, and then it says B2 to B30. All right, so this cell that says 691 is cell B2. All right, I don't want those values, I want the revenue. So I'm going to go over here, and I could just change this to C, and then change this to C, is one way I could do it. The other way that I can do it is click on this icon. It has the values up here, and I can just go over here and paint those values. Okay, and let's see, did it do it the way I wanted it? I think I need to delete it first, and then paint the values that I want in there. And then if I hit enter, okay, now it's got those values that I want. Okay, and then I could do the same thing here, change the Y values. Okay, we'll go to these values, we'll paint them and hit enter. All right, and then okay, and then we're set. Okay. All right, and then I can make this a little bit bigger just by grabbing the corners and pulling them up. All right, so there's the graph that I get. Okay, and then the next thing I'd really like to do is fit a line to the data. All right, and so to do this, it's a little bit tricky, but you just have to put the cursor on one of the points, and you can tell that you're on one of the points because it'll give you the ordered pair that's there, and then you have to right click. Okay, and then they don't call it a least squares regression line, they call it a trend line. All right, and so select that, and then by default, it's going to give you a linear function. All right, but the other things we'd like to have on here is if you scroll down a little bit, we'd really like to see the equation of the least squares regression line, and we'd also like it to display r squared. Okay, and there's not an option to display r, but if we know what r squared is, we can find r. All right, and then it shows up here on the graph. I'm going to put it up here so we can see it a little bit better. All right, and then if you, let's see, if I zoom in just a little bit on that, you can see there's the equation of the least squares regression line. The slope is 3.847 and the y-intercept is 91.711. They give us the r squared, and then to find what r is, all we have to do is take the square root of that, remembering that the r could be positive or negative. So if I take the square root of this, it gives me the magnitude of the correlation coefficient. We need to look at this and say, well, this is a positive slope, so therefore I'm going to use the positive value for r. Okay, so then if I shrink this up a little bit and we go back to the problem, okay, the problem said, it didn't say find the equation of the least squares regression line, but we did. We found it up here. Okay, what is the slope? Well, if you got the equation, the slope should be pretty obvious. Okay, and then the next one, they're asking you to find, they call it the error. Okay, this is actually the residual. Okay, you're going to take the observed value for my question, it was the Bucks. Yours will probably come up with a different team. So I've got to go back to my spreadsheet. I need to find the Bucks. They are the first team here, and then I want to find the residual, okay, like we did in class. All right, and then what's the correlation coefficient? The correlation coefficient is here in the spreadsheet, right? And in fact, let me make this a little bit bigger again. Okay, so I see that r squared is 0.8573. All right, in the spreadsheet, I can actually do the calculation. I can say, let's go to this cell here, and let's say we want the correlation coefficient there. And so I'm going to hit the equal sign. And if you notice, there's an equal sign shows up here where it says f of x. All right, and the value that I want is the square root, so it's SQRT. And I want the square root, and it says r squared is 0.8573. So I can just put in 0.8573, close that, and it tells me there is the square root of 0.8573 to a whole bunch of decimal places. Okay? All right, so go back and let's take a look at the question. They said round it to 3. All right, so if I round this to 3 decimal places, there's the answer. Okay, now the thing I want you to realize, there's a couple of other things that are quirky about this assignment. Somebody emailed me the other day and said they were having a lot of trouble with question number 3. Right? It says, what is the slope of the least squares regression line? Right? This is that problem where you're going to have to use those formulas that I told you about that were not on your handout. Right? And so let me switch this over to my document camera. Okay, and let me see if I can blow that up just a little bit. Okay, and so those formulas that I'm talking about are that the slope of the least squares regression line is equal to r times the standard deviation of the y's divided by the standard deviation of the x's. Okay, this is one formula that we need to use. And then also we said that because the ordered pair x bar, y bar is on the line, y bar is equal to a plus b times x bar. Right, and then from this equation, you can solve for a, and you'll get that a is equal to y bar minus b times x bar. Okay, so these are two formulas that we are going to use here in the spreadsheet as well. All right, so one of the problems with this question here was the question asked you to find the slope up here. All right, so we use that first formula, and that first formula I'm talking about is this one. All right, and then it says to round it to 2 decimal places, right? And so if you do that, and then you take that value of the slope and you take it down here and you plug it into this equation, and then try to find out what the y-intercept is, you're not going to get the right answer, right? And the problem is because it's set up so that the right answer is based upon not this number, 0.13, but more decimal places. Okay? So take your answer to part A out to like 3 or 4 decimal places when you calculate your answer to the second part. All right, I don't like that, but that's what is the problem with number 3. Okay, so let's go back to the spreadsheet, and on the spreadsheet, I'd like to be able to use the formulas that I wrote down underneath the document camera to come up with the equation also. All right, and the reason I want to do this is because on question number 4, I think it is, they ask you to find the slope and the y-intercept to like 5 decimal places, and if you do it on the chart, you're only going to get it to like 3 decimal places, I think is what it's set to. All right, so I want to show you how to find all the other values here. Okay, we don't need this thing anymore, so let's get rid of that. All right, so in order to use those formulas, I need to know, first of all, what is the correlation coefficient? So I'm just going to, I'm not typing equals in here, I'm just typing R equals, okay, and I'm going to find, let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm just going to type R equals here, and then a couple of other things I need. I need the mean of the x's. I'm going to need the standard deviation of the x's. I'm also going to need the mean of the y's. And I'm also going to need the standard deviation of the y's. Okay, and then once I find all those numbers, I can find the slope, and I can find the intercept. Okay, so these are just text to tell me what I'm trying to find here. All right, so if I go over here to next to the correlation coefficient, the spreadsheet is set up so that it will find this correlation coefficient for you. I'm going to click in this cell, and then I have to hit the equal sign, okay, because it's telling it that I want to put a command in here. And the command for finding the correlation coefficient is CORREL. Okay, that's the abbreviation for it. And then I'm going to hit a left parenthesis. And then if you notice, it's prompted me for two arrays. All right, an array is just a list of numbers. So my first array is I want the x values. So I'm just going to paint everything in this column. Okay, and then I'm going to put a comma in there. And then it's asking me for the second array. And the second array is these. Okay, and then I'm going to close the parenthesis and then hit enter. Okay, and if you notice, it's giving me the correlation coefficient to a bunch of decimal places. This number is the same number that we found earlier that was on the chart when I squared it. Okay, and then I want to find the mean of the x's. So I'm going to hit equal sign again. Okay, the command on Excel is not mean, it's average. So I want the average of these revenues. And then close the parenthesis. All right, and it gives me that mean to a bunch of decimal places. I also want the standard deviation of the revenue, so equals. Standard deviation is STDEV. And then remember, there's two standard deviations. There's the S and there's sigma. All right, we're going to hit the period and then S for sample. All right, so we want the sample standard deviation of revenue. All right, so I'm going to paint the revenue column again. And then close the parenthesis, and it tells me there's the standard deviation of those numbers. All right, then I want to do the same thing for the y's. Okay, equals average, and then the average of these values. Close the parenthesis, and then standard deviation. Fix that to standard deviation. Okay, and then equals, and then STDEV dot S, and then standard deviation of these numbers again. Okay, so there's the 5 numbers that I need. Right now, if I go back to my document camera, okay, and here it says that B is equal to R times SY divided by SX. All right, so to find the slope, I'm going to hit equals. All right, and then I don't have to type these numbers in. I can just go up here and say, I want this to be equal to this number times, the multiplication symbol is shift 8. Okay, it's the star. All right, and then the formula said take the standard deviation of the y's, so this number, and then divided by the standard deviation of the x's, that's this number. Okay, so there's the slope. All right, and if you look at the answers here, okay, it said the slope 3.84. Okay, they told us that in this problem, but if we had to find it, okay, we could find it here. Okay, 3.84, and takes it out to many decimal places. Okay, and then to find the y-intercept is found by taking this formula. All right, so I'm going to say y bar, okay, so equals. All right, so y bar is this number, and then it was minus the slope, okay, that's this number, times the mean of x. Okay, and there it is. All right, so then if I go back to the question, there's the equation, okay, negative 91.711. All right, the reason I'm doing this here also is because in question number 4, I think it is, they ask you to take it out to 5 decimal places. Okay, and you can't get 5 decimal places on that chart. Okay, so let's see, I wanted to do one other thing. This is more about the project that you guys are going to be doing. Your project is a Word file, and actually this is it. So there's part of this that I want you to make a scatter plot, and then I want you to, you're just going to answer the questions on here. Okay, you're just going to type the answers. This is a Word file. Type the answers, save it, and then you're going to upload it. Okay, I'm also going to let you do this as a group. Right, so when you upload it, I want to make sure that when you do that, you are selecting everybody's name that is in your group to get credit for it. All right, so this one says to make a scatter plot and to put it in here. All right, so I'm going to go back to my Excel file. All right, I'm going to shrink this down again. All right, oh, I do have this chart still. All right, so here's my chart. I'd like to take this picture. There's actually a couple things I'd like to do with it first. So if I go back up to chart design, okay, one of the things I'd like to be able to do is put labels on the axes. All right, so while you're here, it's called a chart element. All right, I'd like to put axis titles. So I'd like to label this horizontal axis, and you'll notice that there's a box shows up here. And let's say on this one, what was our x's? Our x's were revenue. Okay. Yours in the project is going to be something about wind speed or air pressure, and it's about hurricanes. All right, and then I'd also like to go up here and make an axis title for the vertical. Right, and our vertical axis here was the value. The value of the team. Right? And then also, if I go up here and look at the chart title, I can just, that's already there. I can just double click on it and say, this is revenue versus value of teams in the NBA. Okay, and then once you get that in there, you can also kind of move it around. You can move it over here. I think there's a way to make this bigger, but it's not really that necessary. All right, so there's my graph. Okay, and you notice that there is a team out here that is a little unusual. Right, what is that team? It's 166 and 691. Oh, that's the Bucks. Okay, all right. So the Bucks, and I don't remember what year this was, but that's the year that they were. Their revenue was high, but their value was even higher than what the model would predict. Okay, so now once I get this thing made, I can just click somewhere on here. You'll notice that the bars around it are highlighted. I can go up to Edit, Copy. Then I can jump over to my Word file, and I can say just paste it in here. Okay, and so this is what I want you to do in the project. And then you can also, change the size of this in the Word document. You can also click outside here and say, let's put it in the center of the page. All right, and so this is the graphic that I want you to create in Excel. All right, and then once you get this graphic created in Excel, put it in here, and then you're going to just type in answers for the rest of this stuff. Okay, and then you'll save it with your names on it, and then you'll upload it. I got to look to see if I want you to upload it through Gradescope or if I want you to upload it through the assignment portal on D2L. I'll let you know that on Friday. Okay, so this should give you a little bit of a heads up of how to do that problem in Excel on the homework. I also want to go back and take a look at the other problem that is the extended problem, the tutorial, right? Also, on this one, you're asked to do exactly the same thing. When you get down here to the bottom, then they want you to change the roles of X and Y around, okay? And so when you do that, and you come back here and you're going to find the slope and the y-intercept, you're going to have to change the values up here so that the x's and the y's are switched around. Okay, and you should notice also that if you change the x's and the y's up here, what happens to the correlation coefficient? Okay, you might be surprised at what happens there. But down here, you'll want to change the roles of x and y. So instead of this being the average of column C, you'll want to make this the average of column B. right? And then I think that the formulas that you have down here will be adjusted. So you'll just have to change column A or column B and C when you find the mean and the standard deviation of those. Okay, so I want to go back to the extended question, okay, which was this one. And let's see. Um, I think, let's see. All right, I think I answered one of the questions. I skipped it to the next question, but the next question is to find the slope and the y-intercept. Notice also in here they're using B1 and B0. B1 is the slope and B0 is the y-intercept. Okay, and then this data set that we're going to be using is one down here. So you're going to have to click on this, and then you'll notice that it downloads that file, and it's a zip file. So when I click on this, it'll unzip it, and then I'm going to just double click on this to open it up, and I want to use the Excel file. All right, and so I'm going to open that up. Okay, and it says I've already got it opened up. So that was this one. Okay, it's already open. Okay, so what they're asking you to do is to, I gotta go back and see which way they did it now. They want you to, which is which? After determining that X is the, all right, so X is the highway fuel consumption and Y is CO2 emission. Okay, so I'm gonna find those two in the table. Okay, here is highway fuel economy, and here is carbon emissions. Okay, so when I create my scatter plot, there's this fuel in between there. Now, I could just get rid of that, okay? But another thing I can do is I could just take these highway fuels and I'm gonna copy them. And then I'm going to click down here at the bottom, and I think this is true on a Mac as well as a Windows machine. If I hit this, it's going to open up a new page, all right, and then I can paste those values here. And then I can go back to the first sheet, and I can grab these CO2 emissions, copy them, go to this other sheet, and paste them. Okay? And then once I get those in here, I can make my chart. Okay, so if I say let's insert, and let's insert a scatter plot. Okay, now it gives me a blank one because I forgot to select the data. Right, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to select all the numbers here. Right, and it's going to scroll down for a while because there's like 500 of them. Right, I surely don't want you to copy all these numbers and put them into your calculator. Okay, so come on, scroll faster. Okay, so there's the bottom of the list. Okay, I'm going to come back up here towards the top, and I'm going to say, let's insert the scatter plot, and there it is. Okay, I can make it bigger. All right, now you might notice that this is one that doesn't really look all that linear, all right, but I can still tell it that I want to insert a trend line. So remember, I got to click on one of the dots, and it's not just click, it's right click, and then add trend line. Linear is the default, okay, but we're not going to do anything with this, but you could also fit an exponential function to it. And you can see that this exponential function is an exponential decay. You could also do a power function. Okay, so it looks like actually a power function might fit this better. All right, so we're going to do linear, and then we want to display the equation on the chart, and we also want to see r squared. Okay, and then I have to put that there. Okay, so again, these numbers are rounded to 4 decimal places. The problem with the homework, and I didn't do this on purpose, is they want you to take it to 5. All right, and so you don't know what that next digit is. So really what you're going to have to do on this one is you're going to have to set up those five numbers, the means, the standard deviations, and R, okay? And then use those formulas that I wrote down underneath the document camera. All right, I hope this helps to get through homework assignment, what is it, 2.4, all right, and using Excel. Also, I wanted to go through this because I think it's going to give you a little bit of a heads up of what I'm going to expect you to do on the project. And on the project tomorrow and during your, not tomorrow, but Friday during your discussion time, I'm going to have the TAs put you guys into groups of 3. And then in those groups of 3, you guys can work on the project. Make sure that you get each other's names so that when it's time to turn it in, one of you will turn it in, and make sure that when you turn it in that you give everybody credit for it as you're turning it in, right? And your TAs will instruct you on how to do that tomorrow as well. Okay, I hope this helps. Also, if you've got any questions today, I've got office hours at noon. And then I've also, I guess, I don't have office hours before the exam tomorrow, but I will see you before the exam. I will have the Zoom meeting open at about 9:15, so you guys can get on there a little bit early if you want, and I'll let you get started on the test a little bit early. And then you'll have until 10:45 or so to get the multiple choice done, and then you'll have the rest of the day with a window of time to get the free response done. Okay, good luck on the test. I will see you all tomorrow, at 9:30.